because many salespeople struggle in sales because they they self-sabotage themselves from actually getting into conversations because they don't know enough of what they're talking about. To know how to work with people, we need to know how people look at us. Like, I'm always trying to stand outside myself and what are they thinking? This is why I'm asking questions, right? But confidence, so to have that second part you're talking about, it comes from hard work and confidence, and it comes from failing. So the reason why people like sometimes are like, you're so confident and this and that, well, it came from struggling and failing so many times and saying, this is tough, but I pushed through what was tough and I figured it out. Therefore, when you know that you can take things that you did not know how to do, struggle through them and figure out how to do them now and also do them well and scale them, therefore, you know you have the confidence to do it again. And you know, also believe in yourself, because you start to build that self-esteem and that confidence in not what you're doing, but yourself, because now you know, hey, most people would have quit here. Most people would have figured this out. I did what other people are not willing to do, which is the definition of success, meaning I pushed through and I figured it out. And now I respect myself more for it. And you start to build that confidence. Also, what happens is as your scoreboard increases, because of pushing through these and just staying in the game and being tough, naturally your scoreboard is going to increase, meaning you're going to do better. You're going to add more agents. You're going to, sell more houses and things like that. And as your scoreboard increases, you say, I'm also doing better. I'm more confident myself. And then also the more you go over through repetition, which is what we're talking about with why you should do the for sale by owner calling them, as repetition goes up, the more you know, the more you're going to grow, meaning the better you understand your product or service, the more confident you are to get into a conversation with someone that's going to ask you questions about that product or service. Because many salespeople struggle in sales because they self-sabotage themselves from actually getting into conversations because they don't know enough of what they're talking about. So therefore, they don't actually allow themselves to get into conversations because they know they're going to get questions about what they don't know they're talking about, and they're going to embarrass themselves and it's going to look bad. So to increase the confidence level, reps. Make those phone calls to for sale by owners. The more phone calls you have, the more data you have, the more experience you have, the confidence goes up. The more practice reps lead to more actual success reps, meaning the more deals you're going to close. There goes the scoreboard. Scoreboard's going to go up. And also, going through this process is going to not be fun. It's going to be uncomfortable. And if things are not uncomfortable, you're not growing in life. So what creates fear for a lot of people? Not knowing for one, ignorance for one, but also just taking a risk, right? So if we risk money and we risk time and we risk emotion, you put $100,000 into investment and it's not going very well, do you think you're going to have a level of fear, right? So fear is natural. If you do not have fear, you are not taking big enough risk in life that you're never going to have a great life. So you should always be fearful. You should always be doubting yourself. That's the growing mechanism. That means you're actually doing something big enough that's causing you to be scared enough. That means if you push through that fear, eat the bullshit, come out the back and be successful, what you feared was big enough that the result will be big enough it was worth doing, if that makes sense. So be out of your comfort zone. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Sometimes people think, especially men, a lot more of the men I work with, it's like they think that it's not okay to be scared or, have these thoughts or whatever. It's natural. It is actually what means you're in the right direction and go in the right direction. So increase those reps, build your confidence. You'll start closing deals, build your confidence. And the more you study what you're doing and the more you have a knowledge of your products, you'll increase your confidence. And then as you push through the bullshit and look at yourself in the mirror for doing it, you're going to respect yourself more, which will increase that confidence. It will naturally grow. In the beginning, leverage your great personality and build that monster rock star along the way. Don't ever lose that personality, but build that confidence, if that makes sense, because that is one thing that you see happen in successful people is sometimes the things that they did in the beginning to become that successful person. When they become the successful person, the monster destroys the things that they did, meaning they do stuff differently now that actually was what got them there in the first place. So now they actually destroy their business. You see people have meteoric rises and they get here and then it just explodes. Why? Because the things that they did and the person they became, the character, the internal moral code, everything that they did that was the reason they got to that level, now that they got there, it changed them, which changed the things that they do, changes the respect they have for others and their partners. They talk down to them, they belittle them, they talk down to their clients, they act like you just should be grateful that I list your property. You should just be grateful that my team is the one doing this for you, right? And they move away from the core values, morals, tonality, the frequency, the energy, and how they respected people, the time, meaning instead of sitting in their house for 30 minutes, really asking questions, I just want to be an out in 10. This person doesn't matter anymore. But if you lose yourself, you will lose your business or you will lose that momentum. So just keep that into consideration as you kind of go through this. But yeah, focus on your likability, which is what I had to do in the beginning. And then the other thing you could do potentially also, finds, well, at least on the investment space, let's say, what I did was I had to find that credibility piece. I brought in a guy named Steve Labus and Tim Cook, where I had the likability side, but they were like, this kid's 28. he doesn't look like he can buy a $500,000 house, honey. I could feel that from these, so I brought in the credibility side, the respected side. I brought in someone that was in his later 50s, very successful businessman. And then I brought in the component that I did not have, if that makes sense. So I needed to be brutally honest with myself and awareness with myself, not trashing myself, disrespecting myself, saying, hey, you suck in all these ways, but being brutally honest with myself, where my strengths were, where my lackings were, and then knowing I needed to bring my strengths up in this area, but there's a time element to it. It maybe take me 6, 12, 18 months to get enough skill sets to educate myself enough to bring it up, but that's a long time to wait. So why not bring a third party in that can fill in that credibility gap, that financing gap? I bring a third party in that can help me with that credibility, if that makes sense. So it could be another agent, right? It could be someone else. It could be me. I could hop on a call from time to time. So start thinking who can help sweeten the pie a little bit, who can bring in what you're lacking. And then also, while you're lacking it, how are you going to build what you lack on? The skill set, your education, right? So I'd be putting X amount of time in your drives for education purposes, meaning just build the skill set. And then actually I try to implement the skill set right after it if possible. So while it's front of the mind, fresh in mind, you just learn something, some invitation scripts, conversation starters, do your education, listen 30 minutes to an hour, and then right into phone calls, right? Start getting right into it. So you can now have an association between the practice reps, why it's working, why it's not, based off what you just learned, instead of reading 2 pages of a book and then next week trying to go back and do what they said, because you're going to have to go back and read those 2 pages again. But I would try to take your skill set education time and put your practice reps right after it, if that makes sense. And then also, I just thought of a random thing. Then once you start working with clients or people, get a good idea on the call, like, well, John, I know you told me right now you're going to the soccer game with your family. Like, when would be the best and easiest times throughout the week for us to have our conversations? I always want to respect your time, and I want to make sure that I call you at an area where you have your focus and can actually have a good conversation, as this is a big transaction, and I know a lot of agents out there, they may or may not care. I do. I want you to do well. And if I can't be the one to help you, at least I'll tell you what to do, right? So like you're trying to figure out, should I talk to you on Monday or Friday? So the more you show that you're willing to accommodate them, the more they're willing to accommodate and work with you. That makes sense. It's when, hey, yeah, I'll come in and list your property, but it's my way or the highway. We're going to do this. I'm going to send my team over here. You're going to meet Tim and Erica, and you never met them, and you're never going to see me again after today. That type of stuff doesn't work with homeowners very often.